Good afternoon. Thank you for joining Learn United, Success by Third Grade, a community-wide movement to ensure all children are on a pathway to success by the end of third grade. These series are designed to highlight a variety of voices and relevant topics in the community. Today, we will discuss what is collective impact and how the model may be applied to solve societal issues in our community. We will also discuss the Success by Third Grade movement the United Way has begun with our community partners and our 7 school districts. I am Cheryl Ward, and I serve as the Vice President of Success by Third Grade with the United Way. Today's conversation, we have joining with us, and if, as I call your name, if you could just raise your hand so that the audience knows who you are. Marguerite Jade, Director, Partnerships for Success. Dolly Crespo, Regional Child Care Director for the YMCA and the branch operations for the Whitehall Community Park YMCA. We have Sarah Huffman, Lead Youth Program Manager for the Ethiopian Tahido Social Services, and Charlie Henson, Chief Customer Experience Officer, Columbus Metropolitan Library. We're going to begin our conversation with an introduction to collective impact. And as I begin to pull up the graphic, I'm going to yield the floor to Marguerite Jade to walk us through the collective impact model and the significance of working to address social problems.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this conversation today. I always appreciate the opportunity to share the power of collective impact. And I'm honored to share this space with such wonderful panelists. Partnership for Success has been a collective impact backbone agency and Central Ohio's Strive Together national network partner for almost 10 years. With braided funding from Franklin County Jobs and Family Services, Children's Services, the City of Columbus, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and of course, the United Way, Partnership for Success convened youth-serving agencies in the out-of-school time space to improve the social, emotional, and academic outcomes for Franklin County youth. Our approach centers equity and invites partners to interrogate how the intersections of race, poverty, gender identities, immigrant and refugee status, among other social cultural markers, impact how young people and their families experience youth services in Central Ohio. We ask partners to work bravely in the presence of their differences to disrupt systems of oppression and increase unrestricted access and opportunity for all Central Ohio young people to find success that leads to family sustainable wages. It is with this shared vision for equitable outcomes for children and families across Central Ohio that made Partnership for Success partnership with United Way on their Success by Third Grade movement such a natural fit. Upon joining the Success by Third Grade team, we were able to lean into existing relationships with out-of-school time partners and partnering school districts and focus our collective and shared efforts toward ensuring a pathway for success for every third grader by 2035. When United Way chose to pilot their Success by Third Grade efforts in Whitehall, we reached out to the school district and additional youth-serving partners with whom we had worked alongside since the onset of COVID to explore how we might support United Way's movement. I'm thrilled to see that this panel consists of many of those valued partners who have been at the table in Whitehall alongside Partnership for Success since March 2020. Collective impact asks partners to agree to work collaboratively towards a common goal, and that process attends to 5 areas. These include a common agenda for change, mutually shared measurement systems and results, mutually reinforcing activities, open and continuous communication along with a backbone coordinating agency. Working toward a common agenda requires each partner to bring their full portfolio of resources and expertise to the table as they focus their collective efforts. In the case of Success by Third Grade, United Way canvassed community stakeholders to identify key goals related to success. What surfaced was child well-being, home and family stability, and safe and supported at school. Each of these goals includes indicators to measure progress. This approach is intentionally broad so that each partnering district can identify focus areas related to their unique context. In place-based collective impact efforts, such as Success by Third Grade, it is vital to also hold space for what's important to the host partner. In the case of Whitehall City School, this includes integrating pre-K enrollment and the strengthening of collective efficacy into our common agenda for local implementation of this work. Once the common agenda is set, the group must attend to the development of shared measurement system. This has three facets: how to make available to all stakeholders information crucial to making data-informed decisions. Second, identifying what metrics will be used to measure impact. And third, developing a platform for how results will be shared with the broader community. Piloting in Whitehall, in a space where Partnership for Success had built trusting relationships, set the stage for data sharing that is often difficult to obtain. One immediate win during the summer 22 pilot was Whitehall, a willingness for Whitehall and youth serving partners to share rosters school data that eliminated duplicative services. Successful collective impact requires partners to bring not only their organizational expertise, influence, and professional networks to the table, but more importantly, successful collective impact partners also bring humility, a willingness to hold on to what they are expert in while simultaneously making room for other partners and their expertise. It means being adaptive to the collaborative context as well as the local content. It means being flexible in programming, sharing best practices, and being transparent with constraints and challenges. This need for adaptivity surfaces most clearly when the group is asked to identify mutually reinforcing activities. What are we going to commit to do together towards this common goal? This asks each partner to explore what's possible and be willing to let go of past practices and be open to new opportunities. In the co-creation of these mutually reinforcing activities, each partner's perspectives, lived experiences, and the realities of where their work is taking place must be considered. For this to happen, partners must commit to open and communicate. The fourth area to attend to, which is open and continuous communication. Ongoing touch points to celebrate successes, respond to challenges, and proactively mediate talent, the relationships in the presence of our differences. Here's where we begin to understand that relationships are the currency of collective impact. It is in our willingness to see each partner as equally valued where trust develops, risks are taken, learning happens, and real sustainable change occurs. One example of networks expanding and relationship strengthening in Whitehall occurred in response to the summer 2022 pilot program. As a result of relationships fostered during the Success by Third Grade launch and celebration events, Local Matters is now partnering with both ETSS and the YMCA during after-school programming. It is this sort of partnerships fostered in collaborative settings that produce the magnified return on investment and impact we are seeing. In collective impact settings, funders not only support a single direct service provider, but also the exponential growth and productive partnerships that happens within the context of skillfully facilitated collaboration. It is in collective impact spaces that Partnership for Success, it is in this particular collective impact space where Partnership for Success and United Way of Central Ohio are engaged in an innovative partnership, serving as a backbone, with United Way serving as a backbone entity and Partnership for Success as the convener. Skilled facilitation is at the core of collective impact. In the absence of an impartial convener and facilitator, collective impact is merely another meeting. Partnership for Success is excited to work alongside United Way in this important work, because collective impact is where, as Cheryl offered at the beginning, we can make change on many of the issues that we found challenging over the course of several years. Thanks.
Thank you, Marguerite. A couple of words that you all may have heard as you listened to Marguerite is this idea that it's not just about collective impact, it's not just about group of individuals coming to the table for a meeting. It's intentional work around a common and shared vision. And United Way, as they have launched their work with collective impact, has a shared purpose that all children in Franklin County are on a pathway to success by the time that they leave third grade. Marguerite mentioned some of the indicators, and a part of what has happened in this work of collective impact is that there was an invitation that the United Way extended to school districts who did not meet 75% of a proficiency rating. In that invitation, there were school districts who said, yes, we would like to participate. Those school districts include Whitehall City Schools, Groveport Madison Schools, Southwestern City Schools, Westerville City Schools, Reynoldsburg City Schools, and Gahanna. And in collective impact work, there's a recognition of where do we begin, where do we start? You heard Marguerite address Whitehall. Whitehall is one of those schools that we began services in. We are also uplifting service in Columbus City Schools and Groveport. As our work continues, we will be having conversations and ongoing conversations with the school districts as we add on. A part of Success by Third Grade is that there was a convening of what we call a guiding coalition. And in that guiding coalition, there were representatives from all of the 7 school district and United Way individuals. And we came together and really talked and wrestled with this notion of what would it take to make sure that all of our young people, K through 3, are on a pathway to success by the time that they end third grade. And so the coalition landed on 3 core indicators. So the 3 core indicators, as mentioned before by Marguerite, is child well-being, home and family stability, and safe and supported schools. And the idea is that if we are targeting our efforts in these 3 indicators with mutually reinforcing activities, which means there may be different activities in the districts that we're serving and supporting, but the common agenda, 1, is to make sure all of our young people are on a pathway to success, K through 3, by the end of third grade, and 2, to take a look at these core indicators that the Guiding Coalition has talked about, and how do we bring our providers, our community to the table to maximize the work and to really convene and facilitate around problem solving and decision making, so that when our young people are engaged, we're addressing barriers, we're taking a look at disparities, and we're acknowledging that we are focusing on success by third grade, because students who are not proficient in reading by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out. The other is that 88% of students who failed to earn high school diploma struggled to achieve third grade reading proficiency. And so when we look at the literature, we recognize and we understand that we have to build covering, and we have to recognize that there are other challenges that may be affecting some of our young people in those grades. And how do we as a community, from a collective impact model, come together and address these challenges? We do it by leveraging the expertise of our organizations through a collective impact model. We ignite a multiplier of intervention, belief, and possibility. And so with that, we want to begin to have a conversation with our providers on the screen. The providers on the screen are individuals who work with the Whitehall Project. And a part of today's session is giving you a brief overview of collective impact, recognizing the United Way space and our Success by Third Grade movement, but also putting boots on the ground and helping to visualize and understand how this collective impact model, working with a school district and partners coming together with shared resources and bringing their expertise, has played out as we have worked in Whitehall. And the excitement about identifying and leaning in and solving for challenges that may be impacting children and families so that all of our young people recognize and know all the possibilities that they have. As we begin, we're going to shift to conversation with our panelists. The first question I'm going to begin, and if I can begin with Dolly, and then Sarah, Charlie, and Marguerite, as you all jump into the question. Here's the first question. Success by Third Grade partnered with Whitehall City Schools to support their summer programming. Please share your experience with this collaboration and how your organization brought their expertise to support students.
Thanks, Cheryl. At the YMCA, we are committed to nurturing the potential of every child and teen. And this collaboration has not only created long-lasting relationships between the YMCA, United Way, and Success by Third Grade and ETSS. It's also created a support system for students within Whitehall City Schools. I'm sure it's doing the same in other schools. What my biggest push is when working with other organizations is to not duplicate services. And what United Way and Success by Third Grade has done is given tools and resources to our staff in our programs to fulfill these goals. And as I speak with our staff at Beechwood Elementary, they have seen extreme growth between summer and current reading levels, which is a huge success, not only for the students, but for the collaboration and the Y as a whole. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Cheryl. So for our partnership with Success by Third Grade over the summer, we had a large summer camp over at K North Elementary, and we had around 50 students consistently attending our program. Around 20 students were third grade or below, and we were incredibly thankful for the super valuable partnership that Success by Third Grade provided for our students. This included 2 large events that were very celebratory in nature. Our students had the opportunity to participate in all different activities, games, all related to reading and reading comprehension, especially for the younger students. I could really see how activities such as these helped grow the joy of reading in our students, which is a key part, is just getting students to enjoy reading. That is a huge part in getting students to enjoy that lifelong habit. Additionally, Success by Third Grade also provided curriculum support for us. Our tutors were incredibly thankful for that. There were sight word cards, CBC cards, and a lot of pre-made support for us, which we used regularly. I know Success by Third Grade also provided volunteer tutors for us for several weeks throughout our programming, and we were extremely thankful for that additional support. Like many agencies, our programming was spread somewhat thin with staffing, and so we were so thankful to have those additional volunteers, all sharing the common goal of Success by Third Grade and building sight words, reading fluency, phonemic awareness, recognition of letters. All of these things are key. And one thing we noticed during our summer programming is we used pre-testing using RAS-Kids. And what we found was 61% were actually below grade level from where they were supposed to be in the KG through third grade levels. So this is a huge goal that we all need to strive for, and we continue to work on together to collaborate and to share our unique perspectives. To provide some context, all of our students are English language learners, first or second generation students to this country. So there are some unique vulnerabilities our students face over at ETSS. And so all of the collaboration and support is much appreciated. I'll go ahead and wrap up and turn it over to the next. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Sure. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, I would just add in and say, I think I think an aspect of collective impact, at least from my experience, you know, we're talking about leveraging the expertise of different organizations. It's also, I think, just leveraging the momentum that's already there. So, you know, in our response to the learning loss that we've seen throughout our community and what due to the pandemic and the interruptions that have taken place in the education world, we had already planned it in stepping up our game in the summer, this last summer, to try to get out to summer school sites at four districts that we serve that also happen to be connected to the United Way effort here. So Groveport, Madison, Reynoldsburg, Whitehall, and Columbus City schools. We hired roughly 60 what we called summer reading assistants to get out there to provide one-on-one reading assistance at those summer school sites. That really helped us out because we can promote our programs that we offer in our branches all of the time, but it doesn't have the pull that a school does, right? And it doesn't have that attraction. And also, you know, of course, during the school year, it's mandatory to be there. So the summer school sites provide us a great opportunity to connect with the students that we wanted to reach. And so we already had that working when we came into the Collective Impact project here. So for us, that was about us being open and flexible to not just delivering what we had planned to deliver in those schools, but also getting on board with the Success by Third Grade, you know, curriculum and tools and playing our part on that front too. So that was helpful. I think, you know, Sarah spoke to this. I think one thing that libraries do a really good job of and can bring to this partnership is access to materials, which I think in this day and age, you think sort of take for granted, but I think just getting new, attractive, interesting reading material to kids and someone there just to talk about that in an excited, enthusiastic, and inspired way, I think can really make, you know, it's this mix where you want to get across the message that reading and literacy is important. It's an important thing to do, just like dental hygiene, right? But not make it like flossing, right? It's not like, you know, this is going to be an enjoyable, enriching thing that can be with you throughout your whole life. So trying to bring that to the table. And I think we did a real, you know, hearing from our staff, that was one component. You know, kids were less reluctant throughout the summer to come and read. They were excited to go read with their buddy. So it turned from something they didn't want to do to something they want to engage with. But I just think it's really important.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I love the analogy. Marguerite?
Well, see, I was going to say the same thing. I think for us, I think leading, we were super thrilled when United Way reached out and asked us to join them in this work. And our work, we have been a collective impact backbone agency for almost 10 years. So we had an existing relationship in Whitehall and an existing partnership. So for us, it was really about sort of shifting the focus from how do we respond to COVID and support learning extension centers to how do we get behind the United Way's movement. And so I think what we really focused on was sort of leaning in and strengthening existing partnerships, and then developing new partnerships for this specific third grade space, right? So who's not at the table, who needs to be at the table, both within the district, within the school district, and with partners. And it was really about building capacity around skilled facilitation, because collective impact it happens in the meeting, but it also happens between the meetings, right? So it's supporting people to understand that collective impact really is the work that happens. It's what you do and how you make people feel in the meetings so that everybody feels like equally valued partners. And then after that, what do you do to bring people in and sort of help them shine, amplify their strengths, and help them scaffold where they need some support. So I think that's what Partnership for Success brought to this third grade, Success by Third Grade space.
Thank you. I do see a question in the chat that I'm going to offer up. I'll answer, and then certainly I will offer it up to any of the panelists if they would like to. So there is a question that says, thank you for your time. How does the program movement differ from the Ohio third grade reading guarantee? And really, when we talk about collective impact is a recognition of what is the challenge and how do we solve. And so for us, we're not, the focus is not going into a school district and telling them how to teach reading or telling them how to teach literacy. The focus is what are those other barriers that may be impacting young people that are hindering their ability to show up and be present in a way that supports them and gains their literacy skills. So things that may have to do with unstable housing, home and families, parents who are working double jobs, parents who have multiple children or attending to multiple needs, or caregivers, that life is doing what life does. The disparities that happen within our community around the inequities that may be occurring. There's information around housing, the housing market, food insecurity, life. And so situations that may be happening to young people that may be traumatizing, and that there are all of these kind of social determinants of health that are impacting young people showing up for their best selves. And so a part of this movement and a part of collective impact is recognizing that there's a social challenge, and how do we reach out to our providers, our organizations, our city officials, agencies to come together and say, listen, here's what we're seeing. We have a responsibility as a community to ensure that we are providing and are at the table to help problem solve. And what can I bring to the table in my expertise and my organization that can walk alongside a school district in supporting their students? And so the mutually reinforcing activities are things that we all sit and we talk about, and we say, and Marguerite mentioned it earlier, like how might we come together and kind of solve for a particular concern or challenge and do reinforcing activities. So for Whitehall, as you all are talking today, it really was partnering with a pre-existing summer program and enhancing that. We brought in local matters, certainly dealing with food insecurity and creating options. The organizations and the providers that you see on the screen have a history with Whitehall. And so it really began to say, what are some barriers that we can begin to remove or chip away at that begins to address the totality, that it is not just the educational system's responsibility to make sure that things are moving with their young people, but that we as a community, we have as agencies, we as community providers who have resources, how do we do it in a targeted and meaningful and relevant way that doesn't have everyone stumbling over each other, but that is working together for this common goal, this common view, but bringing what we know and what we do best to the table. I will offer to anybody else who would like to add on to that. There's another one that comes in. It says, how do you see success by third grade trying into other education-related collective impact efforts? For example, Celebrate One. So I appreciate the question. One of the things that the United Way did as they were taking a look at what was going to be the social issue that we really wanted to be able to center ourselves around. And in doing that, the United Way did take in consideration what were the other collective impact organizations and what were they doing. And people may or may not know in the community, I certainly was surprised to begin to learn, we have several collective impact agencies within Franklin County. Certainly two of them that fits into the question in the chat is Celebrate One, Future Ready. And so Celebrate One and their work as a collective impact model centers on the social issue of ensuring that we reduce infant mortality and get rid of it, and that we're also supporting families and young women with children up to that age, that first year of birth or that first year of life. Future Ready then comes in at that 1 year to 5 years in those preschool, pre-development ages and supports. And one of the decisions the United Way made around where to intervene is recognizing that from picking up and supporting that baton from that kindergarten to third grade. And so collectively, the two organizations, Celebrate One and Future Ready, work and we meet collaboratively so that we can weave the thread so that our work is supporting each other and we're handing off things. Okay. I'm going to go to a couple of other questions and then I'll get back to the chat. The second question for the panelists is, when we consider the Success by Third Grade shared purpose to ensure that all children in Franklin County are on a pathway to success by the time they leave third grade, how does a collective impact model support this goal? And I will go over to Dolly first, followed by Marguerite, Sarah, and then Charlie.
Thinking back to the summer and thinking back to COVID, the YMCA of Central Ohio lost 85% of their workforce. So as we created these LECs and these pandemic childcare centers, we were seeing that learning loss more than we had in the past. And the Success by Third Grade model really helped, is currently still helping us rebuild our workforce. So as Sarah mentioned, the curriculum is very helpful, and we're extremely thankful for that specific resource, because we might have staff coming in that are not familiar with education or childcare. And so this is a huge resource for us, which also adds a super important quality piece into our programming, and any programming that has this particular opportunity with Success by Third Grade. The other thing I want to talk about is Marguerite's team, who really takes opportunities to have monthly check-ins with us, sometimes bi-weekly, as well as having, family events at our locations to celebrate and just basically be visibly seen that we are here for the community and we are here for the kids. And so it's worked out really well this past summer and in our current programming. I wouldn't have anything else to add to the model, but obviously we always want to be innovative with reading and getting families engaged. So at this point, we're doing all the things and we're doing well.
Thanks for that shout out, Dolly. I'll make sure Kevin and Jessica get that. We appreciate it. Collective impact is definitely, it takes a village. It takes a village on our team, and it is a village altogether. I think Cheryl really did a nice job in answering the question about that was asked by Natalina, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, regarding the third grade guarantee, is that the collective impact model is more than just, it's bringing in all the facets that impact all the factors that impact whether a child is successful by third grade. It's not just whether they can read, right? It's in what ways are they positioned to read. So we're looking at housing and mobility and food insecurity and access and opportunity for families and for young people, right? For enrichment activities. And so collective impact is a framework, right, that pays attention to all the complexities that live in the possibilities for success by third grade. And I think it also, one of the things that this particular effort is focusing on, and Cheryl, you touched on this, is taking the burden off of educators, right? It is not a third grade teacher's responsibility to make sure a kid can read by third grade. And this speaks to the question about Celebrate One as well, right? It's a community's responsibility. And there are all kinds of pieces and parts that live in that. And it has to do with making sure that children are born healthy and that they have a successful first year and that they are positioned in early childhood to have all that they need to be successful when they enter into school. And then then kindergarten first, it happens all the way up into third grade. And so our work is really about building a whole infrastructure of support. And that's a community responsibility. It's not a third grade teacher's responsibility, right? Or it's not just the YMCAs or just ETSs or just the libraries. It is all of our responsibilities to make sure that our children are on a pathway for success. So what a collective impact model does is it holds on to that belief that we need to bring in, that this cannot be solved by an individual organization or an individual approach, that we really need to bring in everybody to this conversation and to leverage all the expertise that lives in our community towards this common goal.
Thank you, Marguerite. And before Charlie speaks, if I can add to that, a part of it too is intentionality. It's not just having meetings for meetings, but it's being very clear. And the model talks about a shared vision and a shared agenda, and being very clear about what that is, because we are bringing in multiple stakeholders from multiple different places who have their own multiple demands of their own organizations and their own expectations, and recognizing that, but also saying, how do we recognize you and how do we maintain you as an individual, but also bring you into this collective work so that we multiply the outcomes that we can have. There's a question in the chat that really referenced how did the early stages of this work with Success by Third Grade map into fitting into workforce development. The reality of it is in the great city of Columbus, as a city, we recognize and understand the potential for all of our citizens to be able to be productive, to be able to be connected to work, to be able to have means that they can support themselves and their family. And so this work most certainly leans into that. And the work of the United Way, just as our own mission and our value system of ensuring that we are removing and working towards removing barriers that gives every citizen, every young person, every family, every adult, the ability to have access to education, access to healthcare, access to food, access to employment, access to job. And when we begin to intentionally invest in and in all of those areas, so when we're talking about when young ladies are pregnant, up to first grade, those early years, the elementary years, the middle school years, the high school years, that really what we're building in this city is really helping all of those organizations that deal with collective impact recognize that the end goal is that we want all of our citizens to be productive and feel valued and have human dignity that they can provide and that they can contribute not only to their families and to their own well-being, but to the well-being of the community. Because we are better when all of us are working together to make Franklin County, to make this community better. I will go back to Charlie if you would like to answer, because we have got off, so I'll remind of the question, because it's been, we have been talking a little bit, but that really is around how do you see, and I think you might have answered this earlier, but how does collective impact model support the work and the function of the Metropolitan Library?
Sure. Yeah, and I think what we're talking about is a really complicated problem, right? I think this is what everyone wants for children, right? Set them up for a successful life, because that benefits the child, it benefits our society, right? And so I think knowing that that's a complicated and difficult issue, it only makes sense to me that you'd want to bring a lot of different perspectives and expertise to the table on that. I think it allows for a more human approach, and one that can address, I think, what Cheryl was talking about before, the hierarchy of needs, that we see in people's lives. I think oftentimes we encounter this in our work, and I'm sure many other people do too, which is you set out to address a certain problem, and then you realize there are other problems that prevent people from addressing that problem, right? So I think these types of partnerships allow you to handle all of that diversity there. I think the other thing is, in the context of out of school time, is the more partners you bring to the table, the greater number of kids you can reach, right? Because each of our organizations have different summer activities for kids or summer camps for kids. So where are they? And if literacy is the issue, or that's the thing we want to impact, how do we sprinkle in that literacy practice and those components into all of those different places where kids are spending time in the summer? So I think that those are the parts for me here.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat that talked about how important is preschool in this movement and where does this fit into the model. So I'm going to separate the idea of the model in terms of collective impact with the movement of success by third grade, and go back to the conversation I had related to Celebrate One, whose bandwidth is really up into that first year of life. Future Ready steps in from that first year up to age 5. And so that would include that preschool kind of age range. And then Success by Third Grade taps it beginning from K through 3. And so we all have a focus area of where we're focusing, but we're all moving together in that work. What I want to be clear for the audience is that when we lift up this idea of collective impact is the framework, and you can apply it to any particular social problem or situation. For Marguerite and her group for Partnerships for Success, and I'll let her speak to kind of what that collective impact kind of social issue that they're working with, but it's a way to address and bring people together. It's a concept that talks about what is the common agenda? What is the thing that we need to rally around and solve for? And then what what are going to be those measurements? How we're going to figure that out? How are we going to share information and data so that everyone is working together and on the same page? And then what are going to be those mutually reinforcing activities? Whitehall summer programming was one of them, so that we were then able to take a look at and see what was the impact? Is this a part of a roadmap that we can build? The ultimate goal for success by third grade is that we help districts figure out what are those mutually reinforcing activities that will begin to build a roadmap for them that says when we engage in these activities with our students, our families, these are the kind of outcomes we begin to see, which help our young people get on a pathway. And even in the work, to Charlie's point, there may be things that we lift up that we then uncover a whole nother layer to, but that is the conversation of coming together and meeting regularly and talking about that and lifting it up and being able to have the perspectives in the room to really begin to solve for, and quite honestly, begin to dig down that says, what is the root? And what are those things that we can put in play that, one, can help build the infrastructure for districts, be sustaining, help us as the backbone organization to really help organize, convene, facilitate, to make sure that that work is happening. And so Whitehall, the superintendent of Whitehall, certainly has an interest in pre-K, and we are supporting her in that work. Although Success by Third Grade is identified as a K-3 movement, we are then partnering with Future Ready to say, here's a space. And partnering with Educational Service Center of Ohio in that preschool space, so that we bring in those partners to be able to help and be able to support. But in general, Success by Third Grade is centered on the age ranges of K-3. As we begin, and thank you all for the conversation and the rich conversation as we're having this dialogue, it brings, my next question really kind of talks about the community. And a child on a pathway to success is one that feels included, believes in themselves, is present, feels safe, feels supported at home, at school, and in the community. How do we as community members and providers show our support for students and families? And just these are just kind of thoughts about, certainly as a provider, as a community member, because sometimes in the community, people want to help, we're not sure what to do. And we think that there has to be specific targeted things, but there are areas and ways that we can show up. And I'm just kind of curious, this is an open-ended to any of the panelists who want to kind of jump in on this question. And the question again is, how do we as community members and providers show our support to students and to families?
I can speak a little bit on that. Just looking through a childcare lens specifically in that before and after school model, the why is always trying to fill a gap. So we're trying to fill that time with social emotional learning, with literacy, with, you know, if mom, dad, grandma, guardian would like to work out and they want their child to be safe, the Y is a place for them. So we're trying to fill that gap. And as Cheryl mentioned in the beginning, relationships and collaborations are so important. With my team, the biggest things is gaining trust from not only the child, but the parents. As our site coordinator, Ms. Simpson, always says, a parent is a child's first teacher, or a guardian is a child's first teacher. So trying to create a bond and trust with families is super important. And then we can not move on, but engage other resources in that. I found that families might not trust the resource given to them if they don't trust the person that's giving them the resource. So I think that gaining that trust with that child, that family, whatever barrier that they have to overcome, if we can gain their trust, then we have a better chance of helping that family and those kids succeed. That's what I've found. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone, to answer your question about how communities can provide support for our students, a huge thing that we've been talking about throughout our whole time today is the importance of whole child efforts and the intersectionality of a lot of these issues. As mentioned, a teacher or an educational provider cannot fix the issue on their own. It truly takes a village. It requires the support and the help of everyone. Oftentimes what I've seen is the students who seem to be falling behind the most, there's something going on underneath the surface, whether it's they don't have food at home or whether there's family issues going on, or it can be a plethora of different problems, homelessness, risk of homelessness. And so bringing our minds together to address all of these issues, addressing poverty as well as a root cause of a lot of these problems is equally important. And working together, building our efficacy, building the belief that we can make a difference and not giving up on this important problem is extremely important. And so I invite not only partners to work together, but community members, volunteers, anyone who's passionate about this cause can really add important ideas, important thoughts and perspectives to the table. ETSS is just one part of the picture, but we certainly don't do this on our own. And so we always are valuable and we always are appreciative of just thoughts and other people to provide their support. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at time. I'm going to go back to a question in the chat and then and respond. And if anybody else would like to respond to it, you're welcome to. And then I do want to give space for each of you on the panel to just talk about your organization and what do you do. There may be some people on the call who are not familiar with the organization and quite honestly, all of the services that you offer. And so I do want to leave space for that before we get off our session today. But I want to go back and really there's a question in the chat from Sarah. Thank you for lifting it up. And what she says is the pipeline model is helpful from cradle to third grade, but Celebrate One and Future Ready don't necessarily provide direct service to community. So how are you thinking you will work with partners to communicate the pipeline exists to support individual direct needs? And so what I want to lift up, and Marguerite can join in this conversation as well, but what I'd like to lift up is when you think about collective impact, the role of a backbone organization is really to be that convener and that facilitator, and identifying and bringing the right people to the table to have the discussion who are able then to support the work. And so the collective impact people themselves are part of building that muscle and supporting and helping to bring in. Marguerite kind of talked about the meetings in between the meetings. We're the ones that keep everything moving, everything going, and being able to get the right people on the table to have the conversation, to then be able to say, okay, so what does that look like? What are we going to do? And there be some other people who are missing, and then what are the organizations who are coming to the table? What are we going to commit to? What will be our part in this process? And then we are meeting on a monthly basis. We're having conversations so everyone is aware of what's happening, and we're kind of monitoring it and working it through. And so a part of the work is just making sure that there's intentionality with how we're supporting what we are doing and what does that begin to look like, so that the service providers, so i.e. in around a Future Ready space, those direct service people would be the child care agencies. And how are we connecting and making sure that the child care agencies have what they need, or if there's a gap between what families need or community needs and the child care agencies, how do we bring those conversations together to solve for it, so that we can make sure we're removing barriers, we are addressing any inequities or disparities, so that families and young people get what they need.
I think, Cheryl, this is Marguerite, just to add on to what you were saying, and I'm hopeful in response to some of the questions that have come up around both Dante, hi Dante, and Melissa's questions, is really thinking about, I think one way of looking at collective impact is to understand that the conveners and the backbone agencies, while you're right, are not direct service to families, they are absolutely a convener. A collective impact backbone is direct service to partners, right? So we are our service is to help YMCA, ETSS, the library in their supporting them and building their capacity in their direct service to youth and families, right? It's coordinating those services and helping them understand how they can work better together, so that you really, when you think about collective impact, it's about helping an individual partner that's maybe funded, like the United Way funds ETSS or funds the YMCA to do work with families and children. It's helping them be the best at that work, but also to work alongside and share best practices with other partners, right, who are working in that same space, right? So the work of collective impact is the work of leveraging expertise and sharing resources and reducing duplicative services, so that when families are trying to access resources from the Y or from the ETSS, that the Y, or from the library, that the Y and the library and the ETSS, who are all working together, can say, oh, you know what, that's not something we do, but let me connect you with another organization who does serve that need, because now you've built those relationships, right? I started with talking about that relationships are the currency of collective impact. It's Dolly's willingness and capacity to share resources and to have a family who comes into the Y, who she says, you know what, I think you guys should, let me connect you with ETSS. I think they've got some programming that would be really supportive of you. It's helping them reach, it's local matters, it's connecting them with local matters. Here's some resources. So it's really about how do we take all the resources, all the providers that live in a context, in this case, what we're talking about in Whitehall, and support them across multiple stakeholders, multiple providers, multiple contexts. So it's really, and so that we, Dante, to your question, is that we're leveraging all of the resources and all the expertise in supporting helping families access opportunities that are available to them within the context of our community.
Thank you, Marguerite. If we can spend some of first of all, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the chat. Thank you for the amazing questions that you all are lifting up. This is phenomenal work. The providers are a representation of many providers within our city that do phenomenal work. As we begin to kind of close down our time together, I do want to yield an opportunity for each provider to just give maybe about a minute spiel of your organizations, what you all do, and then we will wrap it up with with some closing comments and any closing thoughts from any of the panelists. Dolly, if you would like to start, and then Sarah, Charlie, and then we'll end with Marguerite.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Dolly Crespo with the YMCA of Central Ohio. And I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we are truly a movement. The YMCA is in 120 countries. We are 178 years old. We've been around a long time. And how we came to be is based on volunteerism, collaboration, and relationships. We would not be here today without them. Some of the things that we do, we have 3 pillars that kind of encompass all of our programming and opportunities: healthy living, social responsibility, and youth development. Some programming that maybe you don't know about is our social services that we try to showcase and promote as much as we can. Juvenile justice is one of them. Our family shelter at Van Buren is another. Our housing services, our food program, our mentoring programs, and that comes alongside of our memberships and our childcare programs, our preschool, our Head Start, our Future Ready. So we do a lot of different programming. I could go on and describe each one of them, but I only have a minute. So if anyone would like to contact me, my information will be at the end of this panel meeting, and you can always reach out and I can connect you to any services that you might need. And I'm a resource as well. So, thanks.
Hi, everyone. So Ethiopian Tewahedo Social Services, otherwise known as ETSS, is a grassroots organization that started here in Columbus Fun fact, Tawahado actually means together as one, which I think kind of speaks to the whole idea of collective efficacy and collective impact. It was actually started by an Ethiopian Orthodox church here in Columbus and then grew over time. I'm proud to say today in 2022, we are officially one of 3 refugee resettlement agencies here in Columbus, Ohio. So I'll speak a little bit about our work in the Adult Services Department because we're a lot more than just an after school and summer program. We also not only resettle refugees and immigrants, but we also provide ESL classes and services. We provide family care support. We support victims of violence and victims of human trafficking. We also do a plethora of other work as well, including community health and wellness. And we helped have free clinics that provided like free vaccinations during COVID-19 when those were really hard to get. So a lot of great work that we do even outside of the Adult Services Department. Here in the youth program, we're rapidly growing. We will soon have 16 locations across the city of Columbus, and we're expanding across several counties. So hugely growing program. And actually our goal is to have an early childhood development center here soon. Right now our programs support K through 18 in a variety of different ways. So that is a little bit about my agency. So please feel free to reach out if you would like to connect. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. So a little bit about CML. I would start off by saying our #1 strategy here at the library, at least external strategy, is called our Young Mind strategy. And there was some discussion about a pipeline. And I think, at least in terms of education and literacy, I think we'd like parents and caregivers, along with their school districts, to see the library as that pipeline, throughout their child's education and upbringing, particularly with out of school time. So for the Ready for Kindergarten front, we offer, of course, classic library program of story times, but we also do Ready for K success camps in the summertime with kids who are entering kindergarten as a bit of a boot camp going into kindergarten to get ready for that. We also do Ready for K classes where in a lot of cases, the parents and caregivers are more of the audience there than the children there, right? As we talk about parents and caregivers being their children's first teacher. And then we get into school age programming, like our Reading Buddies program that we offer every day after school. That's primarily for K through 3rd graders, where we offer one-on-one reading practice and some exercises there. Also, at all 23 of our locations across the county, we offer school help center services, so homework assistance after school, or just education or academic assistance in general there. And then moving into high school. So it's really Ready for Kindergarten, 3rd grade reading, high school graduation. So we have a U-Media program where students get exposure to the graphic arts and music and things like that. And so we're trying to hit all of those bases and want to be a resource for parents and caregivers and students throughout their lives. So I would just mention that, and just I think our focus now has shifted a lot more to really understanding the users of those services. I think for a long time in the past, we put a lot of emphasis on the structure of our programs and the rigor in our programs to make sure that those were grounded in research and best practices, and all of those things are really important. But we also need to make sure that we humanize those programs and account for all of the different needs that are in people's lives, and make sure in terms of how we're messaging and how we're offering those programs is relevant. So and then also I would say school outreach too. I think, coming out of this pandemic, just feeling a greater sense of urgency to get out where the students are and meet them wherever they're at, even if that's not in the library. So.
Thank you. Marguerite, we've left you about 30 seconds.
I'm good. I think I had the most
Close it
answers.
up.
I'm good. I put our website in there. There's a short video if you want to sort of see the power of collective impact. There's a short video about that. And in the end, we convene out of school time partners and their partnering school districts around increasing the social, emotional, and academic outcomes for young people. So it's really about building capacity across providers. So you can check out the website and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for an amazing conversation to all the panelists. As a trusted partner in Central Ohio for nearly 100 years, United Way is committed to working side by side with our community and for our community toward a better tomorrow. United Way brings together donors, volunteers, advocates, nonprofits, leaders, and more to take on Central Ohio's toughest challenges, We hope you will continue to join us for future conversations like this one that can be found at liveunitedcentralohio.org/events, because our community is stronger when we show up united. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having us, Cheryl.